Hello, my survivors and members of the Horde, and welcome to your indie snapshot of Nether. That's right, I'm looking at Nether, something that a lot of you have been asking me to take a look at for a little while, and I've been meaning to take a look at for a little while. Nether is an open-world, post-apocalyptic survival sandbox kind of RPG, very similar to maybe DayZ or the WarZ, but without zombies. It replaces the zombies with teleporting alien monsters instead. And I've put in a few hours into Nether so far, just to kind of get a feel for how the game is, and I have a lot. I have a lot to say about it, as I tend to with these particular games. It's interesting what Nether attempts to do compared to other games of its ilk, for instance. At first glance, I was a little bit wary of Nether, to be honest with you, because Nether looks a whole lot like its counterpart, or should I say its potential counterpart, the WarZ. Very similar feel, the way it controls is a little bit on the floaty side. The way it looks even, not exactly the best looking game of all time. Granted, now everything I am going to say has the potential to change because it is alpha, but everything it does bears a very striking resemblance to the WarZ. And we're going to talk about its mechanics and how it all plays right as we get into it. I'm just kind of looking around to ensure that I'm mostly safe. So, right off the bat, you're going to start off in Nether with just a machete, like a kitchen knife, I think. And I think that's it. Just a kitchen knife and some basic stuff. And you're tasked with surviving in this game. In the bottom right, you're going to see all your necessary stuff. So you have your sprint in the middle. On the left is the compass. And on the right is your food. That weird, grenade-looking picture is actually your hunger, which makes no sense. And you lose hunger the more you kind of survive, and the longer you sprint, you actually get hungrier faster. If you sprint for too long and run out of sprint meter, it takes a while before your sprint actually starts to regenerate. So you kind of need to manage your sprint meter just a bit. Then your first task in order of business is going to be finding guns or finding something to survive with. Obviously, you're going to want to find weapons, food, and whatnot. It's very, very samey in that regard. It's nothing different. And to be honest with you, the mechanics are okay. Like I said, the shooting mechanics are kind of weird. The controls themselves are a little bit floaty, but everything seems pretty responsive. As far as other players and stuff, the rubber banding doesn't seem to be all that bad. They do players can teleport a little bit around. I have noticed players teleport around as I've watched them from a dark corner of the world, and maybe shooting them would have been a bit difficult if I had attempted to do so. But it only happens once in a while. Usually you can get a good shot off on a player if you want to shoot them. One of the main things in this game that I actually have kind of a minor complaint with is the control options. So in a lot of games you have the opportunity to mess around with your control options or even your graphical options, and the options that are presented here in Nether are pretty minor. We're going to get up somewhere high and see if we can take a look at some of the control stuff safely without hopefully running into another player, which chances are we won't. We are going to crack down here and lie down. So if we hit escape and take a look at some of our options here. You have your motion blur, your shadows, all stuff that I've turned off just to improve performance, because even for a game that's built in Unreal Engine 3, it is pretty poorly optimized, and does kind of have dips here and there, so I've kind of messed with it a little bit. You have your detail, medium, you have some basic stuff you can mess with here. But this is it. This is all you have the opportunity to mess with. If you want to mess with anything else, you need to go into the INI file that the game provides and mess with it personally. One of the main things I was looking for that I wasn't able to play around with a lot was the mouse sensitivity. The game has a ridiculously sensitive mouse. It is incredibly sensitive, and I have not gone to the INI file and messed with it too much because it's just I can't be bothered. It shouldn't be something I have to do. It should be optional right in the options, and I'm hoping they add that in. Again, early access is early access, but I still wanted to point that out. DayZ is one of the earliest alphas I've ever seen an alpha game, and even has some pretty decent customization options as far as the PC is concerned, and you should have that in the game. It should be built in to be part of that. So that's one of the things I have a huge problem with as far as gameplay mechanics go. Shots sound really good. One of the cool things I do like about the game is that since the game is so quiet, which I also really enjoy, shots can be heard, depending on the gun you're using, shots can be heard a mile away. If I was to fire this gun, which is a DMR type gun, everybody would be able to hear it, and they would be able to come and kind of track me down and find me if they really wanted to. So that's how that works. Graphically, the game is built, like I said, on the Unreal Engine, and there's a few complaints I have about the game as far as how it looks. First of all, it doesn't look all that pretty. It's not an amazing looking game, and for a $30 game, I think it might be $40. You kind of want to, you're gonna have to swallow the pill that the game is not gonna look amazing. I think DayZ's around the same price, maybe a little bit cheaper, and it is, in my opinion, a much better looking game. It is highly detailed. It is incredibly realistic in a lot of the ways that the animations are concerned. Now, I'm not saying DayZ looks amazing, but compared to this game, it definitely looks really good. And, that's a point I have to kind of give over to DayZ. DayZ definitely looks like a better game. And I'm going to do a lot of comparisons between this and DayZ because, a lot of them hold between the War Z and DayZ. Now, one of the things I do like about the way the game looks is its post-apocalyptic kind of Fallout-ish feel. It's very dreary, obviously a lot of browns, which, can be kind of overdone. But the fact that it's not zombies is really, really nice. And they've definitely gotten the point across that this has been a lived-in world. Lots of broken down cars, smokes, fires, buildings that are abandoned and tipped over. This looks like a world that was once bustling, but one day was up and abandoned. Like, this was a well-lived-in world, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, it's gone. And just one day, it's gone, and that's where it was kind of left off. Did I see something out there? Alright. I thought I saw something moving out there, but that's fine. Gotta kind of keep my wits about me as I kind of play and talk at the same time. With players potentially popping up everywhere. But yeah, it definitely looks like this was a well-lived-in city that was jumped, just up and left, which is a cool feel. The music, which is incredibly minimalistic, if ever. The ambient noises that play off in the distance all the time. All of this just is superb. I really like the feel this game gives. It feels very empty, very lonely, very, very creepy. Trust me, this game is incredibly creepy. And it does a good job at kind of pushing that feel. The game also has a map that's built in, so, compared to DayZ, this is a much more casual, friendly survival game. Nothing that's gonna, blow your mind or make you wish you were, dead on the inside because you can't find food or whatever, which I'm actually having a hard time finding right now, which is kind of funny. But if I hit M, here's the map, and I'm actually near the Nether Surge, which is kind of scary. And I'll talk about those in a little bit. This is the map that you're allowed to travel in right now, nothing else. This is all, I don't know if they plan on developing, but the map's pretty decent. The fact that you have a map, a mini-map right off the bat, and are able to, just kind of... Magnum ammo, that's nice. No backpack space, which is fine. The fact that you're able to kind of have all this convenient stuff left of right away is interesting. I'm not sure if I like it or not. It's not that it's a bad feature, because it's not a bad feature. I don't know if I like it or not, because I much prefer something like, more hardcore. So giving me a map right off the bat is, I don't want to say a crime in my books, but it's just not amazing. What is this? We're gonna consume this. We had a little bit of an energy drink left. We have a mag DR, which I think we have already. What is this? This might be better than what we have now. So we're gonna go ahead and unload this and maybe drop this. This looks like a way better gun than what we have now. So that's good. We're gonna go ahead and carry this around. But the Nether is definitely something that's way more casual friendly than a lot of other games are right now. A lot of other survival games, and that's fine if that's your kind of thing. More bandages, which is nice. We'll actually end up using these to heal up. I don't know if this is the ammo we use. I don't think it is. We have a crowbar over there. Okay, we'll keep walking here. I'm looking for food primarily. Another crowbar. As you can see, the way the ammo glows and everything and kind of sticks out really does make it feel, or have a very, very War Z feel. But again, alpha is alpha, and that's, we can use that excuse. But I'm going to point out its negativities. Now, for all its awesome, like, lonely feeling and empty world feeling and abandoned buildings, and there's a lot of, like, buildings you can enter and stuff. One of my bigger complaints is that it almost feels too cluttered, which, if that's the thing, there is so much shit just lying around that seeing stuff is kind of hard, almost to its detriment. And moreover, because there's so much shit lying around, you're going to see a lot of repetition very early on. Building interiors, for one, are something that you will see a whole lot of repeat of. Building interiors are used over and over and over again in this game. And, you know, when my first hour of playing this game, when I first launched it, I probably saw the same building interior 3 or 4 times. And that is something that, you know, if you're gonna have a world that's cluttered and feel lived in, repetition needs to be something you be very careful of, because a lot of that discovery feeling and a lot of that, ooh, what's in here, ooh, what's in here, is gonna be lost. And one of the games that does that really well is Fallout. Fallout, the franchise, has an incredibly cluttered, lived-in feeling, but something Fallout always maintains and does so really well is that sense of exploration is never really lost. You're always stumbling across, you know, scenes in the world that tell a story, and that's not prevalent in Nether. It is incredibly boring of a lived-in world, which is kind of unfortunate. It really, really is. It's more fun to traverse to the outside than the inside of buildings, which I think is kind of a crime. In these kinds of worlds, I want to enter these buildings and I want to see what I'm going to find. Am I going to see skeletons sitting around a dinner table that they were having their last supper before whatever happened? Am I going to find, you know, bodies lying around? Am I going to find food lying around? Am I going to find maybe a Fallout shelter that was in there that somebody built and found? Like, oh, here's a nice little scene, actually. A couple of bodies lying around. You don't really see that too often in this game. But that's not really prevalent in Nether, which is really unfortunate. It's just not there. All the stores look the same. All the buildings look the same. And it has an empty feeling in the wrong way. Fallout feels empty, right? That's how it's supposed to feel. Fallout is supposed to feel empty and you're supposed to feel alone, but at the same time, an empty and alone world that you're not really getting bored in. Nether, it feels empty, alone, and boring. There's just so much crap, but all of it is the same, that I kind of get bored looking at it all the time. And it's funny because there's these monsters that you're supposed to come across. They're the Nether beings. They come from the Nether. I don't know if they're aliens or whatever. And they're really cool when you come across them. There's different types. Some of them are harder to kill. Some of them are scarier looking. There's like a big hulking one that wanders around every so often that you need to kill off. And these things happen, and they wander around, but unless you go to the world map events, the random world map events, you're not really going to see them. I mean, I've been playing for, what, almost 15 minutes, and we've not seen hide nor hair of a monster or a player. We're kind of empty in the worst way possible here. You want to come across monsters, and we're in a city, right? If you were playing a zombie apocalypse game like this in a city, you fully expect to have to run across zombies pretty often. I'm not asking to run across zombies or these nethers to the point where it's just ridiculous and you can't ever, you know, move without running into them. But you need to find that balance between incredibly overbearing and, you know, not overbearing enough. As of right now, it's not overbearing enough. There's not a lot here. I'm not fighting anything. I'm not fighting for my life. I'm not scared. You know, if I come across a nether, I know for a fact that there's not going to be many around it. I've never come up to a point where I feel like I'm threatened. I feel like I have the run of the place, that sprinting around is no problem, because stealth is an option in this game. We'll talk about that later. But the way this world is presented, you know, it feels like it's supposed to be creepy, scary, spooky, and it's not. And it's not at all. It just feels empty. And for a game that's sold as well as I think it has, and has been in its development for as long as it has, I feel like that's something that could be easily rectified. And it's not. And I feel like that's again another missing thing in this game. You know, you feel like you want to be under threat at all times and scared to survive. Like, surviving is something you want to feel like you should be doing. It's a cool scene. But it's not. It's really not. And it's a shame. And I know it sounds like I'm harping on Nether, and, you know, I am. I'm harping on it pretty hard because I think there's a lot of weak things. Because what I see here is something that is very average. It is not as spectacular as what, you know, even the DayZ mod can do right now. It is not as spectacular as other survival games out there, but it's not as shit as War Z. It does attempt to do some things. Ooh, some cash. It does attempt to do some cool things in the game that, you know, you really don't really see too much of in these types of games. We can read something. I won $10 from a scratch and win ticket once. There are like little stories, so we found some food. Let's go ahead and eat the food up. And some more money over here, which is nice. It does try to do some unique things that I really like that a lot of other games aren't doing. One of the things that, you know, it's obviously stuff that's trying to prevent shoot-on-sight mentality as well, which, to be honest, hasn't been really taken care of in a lot of these games. And even Nether's actually just a shoot-on-sight game. Let's not beat around the bush. It does do some things to try and stave that off, but it fails to do so in a lot of ways. But again, with Nether, it is early access. Maybe that'll be taken care of. But there's some cool things that Nether tries to do. One of which is a leveling system. It does bring in an RPG system into the game. If we take a look at our character here, we can go over here, and we have actually a skill tree here. So we have guns, which allow you to do cool things like hold your breath and, you know, allow you to take better shots. More damage on headshots, and at level 10, the survival will deal 25% more damage with all guns, which is awesome. Stamina, so it can run longer, jump higher, and run farther. Survival, which will allow me to not eat as much. Basically, balanced diet. And survive against extra 25 HP, so I heal easier. All these stuff. So it has these abilities, and you gain this by shooting people and monsters, and by shooting and fighting, you gain experience, and then you can put it in any one of these things. It's a universal experience system. You don't, you know, I don't have to sneak around to gain sneaking experience, so it's not that realistic. But what it does do is kind of cool. So you get experience from fighting things, and then you can upgrade your characters the way you want, which I like. It allows for some sort of diversity amongst your characters. I know there was talk of, oh, was that a player down there? That looks like a monster, actually. That does look like a monster. That's kind of cool. There might be a few monsters down there. Yeah, there's a few monsters down there. That's kind of cool. We might go check out the monsters here in a minute. So I know there was talk of DayZ doing like a hidden skill system and stuff, and that is cool. I'd love to see that, but that's really nice. Another thing the game does like random world events, which I think is a great idea. As you might have seen, something called a Nether Surge has happened. A Nether Surge is a part of the map that suddenly has a ton of these Nether beings show up, and you can take care of them, and I think you get some cool rewards. There's supply drops that happen, very similar to Rust. You'll have it'll say a supply drop has happened in X location on the map. You can head to that part of the map. You can then try to grab the supplies, which is typically high-end, high-tier stuff. And from there, you can... oh, I thought I saw somebody over there. And from there, you can, you know, maybe fight it out, or, you know, try and dish out the loot if you're with, you know, friends and whatnot, which I do like. But as of right now, the way these things work is just not enough to stop the kill-on-sight mentality, which is really unfortunate. It is very much a just shoot on sight and get whatever loot you can end up getting. So we do have some Nether beings over here, which we're going to try and fight here. One of the cool things I also do like a lot about the game is that it has a sense of verticality that a lot of other games don't have. Well, DayZ will have now. The verticality of the level design, where buildings, you can go in a lot of these buildings, which is kind of a nice thing, you know, again, even with the repetition of the insides. That's even something DayZ suffers from. But it adds a sense of verticality. You know, with a sniper, I can get on top of these buildings and just overwatch an area. If I have a friend who's looting an area, I can gladly jump on top of a building and just kind of watch him and guide him from a distance, which is really kind of awesome. I do like that a lot. I don't know how powerful these monsters are, but we're going to take a shot at this one. Alright, so they teleport. That's how they work. Alright, so we're going to have to be very careful here as we fight. Alright, we took out him. Yep, there's another one. Took out two. Alright, we were able to take out two. Let's reload. ammo is pretty scarce. Something the game does very well, I'm very happy that they do, is that ammo is actually pretty goddamn scarce in the game. So finding ammo and cherishing it is important, and you kind of want to make sure you don't necessarily waste the ammo you have. We'll take out my sword for now. I'll run around with my sword out. We can switch guns pretty quickly. But yeah, the random world events are kind of a cool idea. I like what it brings to the table as far as the world events go. I think if it expands on that enough and does enough with it, we could get a really cool system and maybe even enforce some player interaction. Let's go this way. And, enforce player interaction and maybe have people work together and not be shoot on sight. I mean, that's a very difficult mentality to break in these types of games as well. Because honestly, if you see somebody and they have something you want, you're going to end up, shooting them for it. That's just how these games go. We do have a DMR thing over here. Let's actually eat our food and just pick it up. And we can pick up the DR-15, and we can empty it of its ammo. And then we can drop it, because we don't need it. But yeah, I think that's a smart decision. I mean, I know we'll be seeing some of that kind of stuff in DayZ as well, but DayZ's very much don't trust who you see. But with Nether, what it's trying to do, it seems like what it's trying to do anyway, is bring about a sense of working together. I mean, sure, there's always going to be PvP and there's always going to be the sense of tension, but it's less so than in DayZ. And I think it's meant to be that way because, again, you're not fighting for minimal stuff like you are in DayZ. In DayZ, you don't even have a map. You have nothing. And the more of these, precious loot things that you get, the more you're going to want to defend it and the more you feel threatened around every corner. But with Nether, it's a little bit more casual friendly in that they start you with a melee weapon and you always have a map. So you never will lose that kind of stuff, and the only things that you're going to end up losing are your guns. And that's replaceable pretty quickly. As you can see, I've already run across some fucking great guns in this game. And I've only been playing for almost like 25 minutes here. So you're not having that sense of tension in PvP as you would in something like DayZ. But Nether, that PvP is there right now, but I think that PvP is right now primarily because a lot of people are bored and there's not as much to do in the game right now. But with these emergent world quests, I really do think that maybe, just maybe, it won't be as shoot on sight as other games are in the franchise, or should I say the genre, which is, good. In certain games it works well, in other games it's just frustrating. For instance, Rust, it's incredibly frustrating. But as it stands now, Nether is pretty simple. It's, there's no leaning around corners. Controls are basic. It's very arcade feeling, floaty controls. It's a very average game, and it does a lot wrong, but does enough right where I can see it fixing what it does wrong and making the game better. One of the things the game does have is safe zones. You can go to these safe zones on the map that are like over here. We'll start heading that way, and you can purchase things with like the money you find on the ground. Now, there is a microtransaction market that does exist, but unlike the War Z, it is all cosmetic as far as I can tell. And we'll take a look at that market when we get to the safe zone, because you can only access it there. But yeah, I still don't know if I like that a lot. I mean, you're making an initial pretty steep purchase of $30 for Nether, and to throw on microtransactions, even if it's just cosmetic, is in bad taste ever so slightly. They're like, you paid us money, now pay us more money. And I don't like that, even if it's just cosmetic. If you're gonna, you should leave the cool cosmetic loot out in the world. It gives me a reason to explore these buildings even more. As of right now, the only reason I explore it is for a weapon if I don't have one, and food. And that's it. There's no cooler stuff to find in the world as far as I can tell. I've never run across it. And I really think that's another missed opportunity. With the opportunity to have these cool aesthetic items around the world, you're going to give people more of a reason to go look around, because you can customize your character to make them look a lot more badass than maybe the next person who runs across. Having them as microtransactions, though non-intrusive and makes it feel non-necessary, all the cool looking stuff is going to be kind of off limits. And I'm not okay with that, especially for me, who I really like to look really badass in these types of games. Like in DayZ right now, my character's geared to hell. And being able to walk around looking like that, it's going to give people who are not, who are kind of in noob beginner gear, when they see me, they're going to be like, okay, if I want to kill this guy, if I want to engage him, maybe I should think twice, because he's got pretty much all the best gear that exists right now. And that's something that I like in these types of games. I want to look cool. I want to be able to run around and show off my crazy gear, kill somebody while wearing an awesome mask or something. That's just one of the options that we have that I would like to see. So we're in the safe zone. What we're gonna go do now is head over to the dollar bill sign. There's no shooting here. I mean, I can click and it doesn't work. You can't shoot in the safe zone. So again, it is 100% safe. You can't get killed here if you want to run and hide and feel safe. The only time safe zones aren't safe is when they're being attacked by Nether, which can happen every so often. Nether can attack the area, and you can end up losing stuff. There's a courier package here, which does, I think, spur a quest, though I'm not entirely sure where I'm supposed to go with it. But that's fine. We're going to go over here and see if we can maybe sell some stuff or purchase some stuff, which is right over here somewhere. All right, yeah, we're in the inventory zone. So we get I, and we can go into items. So we have the marketplace, which we click over here, and this is stuff we can buy with in-game dollar bills, which it's like 2,500. We can buy that with game money, that cash that we find in the game. We can also buy a bigger pack with that kind of stuff, which is nice. We have $60 right now, so we kind of have to be smart about what we spend it on. And then we can buy gold with real money. And this is what gold buys. Helmets and masks, cool-looking stuff. Like I said, all aesthetic-looking stuff. That's kind of cool-looking. I like that a lot. But as you can see, it's purely aesthetic, and that's kind of how it is. And I don't know if I like that too much. I do think that there is potential for a lot more in this game than there is right now. There is a global inventory, which we can drag and drop some stuff over. So we'll drag and drop some stuff. We have a courier package, which I don't even know what to do with. We have some painkillers. I would love to. We can drag and drop this in the inventory for now. Again, it's going to have that loot hoarding feel, which is unfortunate that War Z has. War Z is all about loot hoarding and accessing your global inventory. So, when you do die, you are going to have, a global inventory to access, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's there, and it's what it is. But like I said, with how everything works, I really do wish that there was. This is NPCs. They just kind of stand there and bob up and down. It's kind of funny, actually, how goofy and unfinished they look. But it is alpha, and that's very much excused. But right now, I would say Nether is kind of average / slightly below average. Is this worthy of your early access dollars? Right now, in current present time, I'd say no. Not quite yet. You can get other cooler early access games that are not quite as disheveled as Nether is. Nether just feels like it has a lot of work to do, and it feels like it needs to differentiate itself just a bit more. It needs to make things slightly easier. Not easier, I'm sorry. It needs to make things slightly more vibrant and variant. Variant's probably the better term here in the world. It needs to make things a lot more fun to explore. Its arcadey controls I don't think are going to go away. It's not going to be for those super hardcore survival sandbox people. It's just not. It's much like War Z is not, but this is done in a much better way. It's not intrusive. The marketplace with the microtransactions are not the most amazing and effective things in the world. The world just needs to not feel as empty as well, and empty in a bad way. Empty in a good way are fine, but empty in a bad way, not so much. I would love to see that switched up just a bit, and maybe made a bit scarier and a bit more dangerous to traverse in the world, because that's what you want to feel. You want to feel like you're never safe in this type of world. But that's just where Nether is right now, and I think there is potentiality for greatness in the game. It's just not quite there yet. Here's another player. We're gonna take a look at Chad here. Chad has a cool backpack. Looking good, Chad. But that's what I think we're gonna stop. Here. If this looks like your kind of game, it's on $30 for Steam right now. I'd say wait. If you want a survival sandbox, it's gonna be a bit more casual friendly. Nether might be the road you want to go down, but I might wait for a few more patches to see if they're still really looking to push things forward. As far as I can tell, they are still updating the game quite regularly, which is good. I'm very curious to see what's going to end up happening over time with this game. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like. I'm curious what your thoughts on the game are, so make sure you drop those comments below and let me know what you think of Nether. I think there's potential here. And as always, hit that subscribe button for more indie snapshots and to join the members of the Horde or the Survivors. And claim your allegiance down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.